Welcome back to another episode of Learning to Learn, where I distill resources and share different learning strategies. Because the world that we live in is moving so quickly right now, and the best skill that we can develop is our ability to learn. Whether that be in AI, coding, personal finances, a different language. This book, called Make It Stick, is one of the best scientifically backed books I've ever read. It explains all of the common learning traps that people fall into and how to correct them, which is what I'm going to be sharing with you guys today. As per usual, it is not enough just to listen to me talk about stuff. After reading this book, I realized that having different little quizzes throughout the video is actually going to help you more in learning the material. So that's what I'm going to do. A portion of this video is sponsored by Brilliant. In fact, we're going to start off with a quiz. You may be wondering right now, Tina, why are we starting off with a quiz? We haven't even said anything yet. Well, actually, it's because testing is so effective that's even effective before you learn something. And this is a technique called priming, where I'm going to expose you to the information you're about to learn. So, pop quiz. Which of these do you think are effective study techniques? Highlighting, rereading, testing, teaching other people, cramming, repeated practice, taking notes, taking breaks, coming up with your own solutions. Now, before I give you the answer, I'm going to first go through 3 different misconceptions that people have about learning, which is going to help you understand why certain learning techniques are better than others. The first misconception is that you think you're good at knowing if you're learning or not. This is such a trap. People are in fact really poor judges of whether they're learning well or not. So many people fall into this trap. If you've ever just felt like you're trying to learn something, you're concentrating really hard and you're trying to get that information, you're banging your head against the wall, but you just can't seem to grasp that information, you may feel like you're not making any progress, when in fact you are. It's just subconscious at that point, and you gotta keep going and push through until you can actually see the fruits of your labor, which, by the way, is where most people fail because they just feel like they're not making progress and then they just end up giving up, which is so sad because so many people are stuck in that beginner loop where they just try to learn something and then just give up before they ever see any progress. On the other hand, the opposite is also true. We may think that we're learning something and we're learning something well, when in fact, you're not really doing anything. Like, for example, say that you're listening to a teacher explain a math problem to you. They might be like, okay, when you see a math problem, you first do this and then you do this and then you do this and then you get the result over here. And you're like, wow, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. And you feel like you have learned this information now, when in fact, if you actually try to do the math problem yourself, you will find that you have actually not learned the information. Another example is, say that you're rereading stuff over and over again, and you feel like you're retaining that information in your brain, when in fact you're actually not as well. You're simply falling into what is called the familiarity trap, which is when you feel like you're becoming more and more familiar with the information being presented. It doesn't mean that you've actually learned that information. And that is actually a great transition to talking about the second big misconception that people have about learning, which is that learning should be easy. It's actually the opposite. The more effortful and hard learning feels, the deeper and more durable it is. A quote from the book, "Learning that's easy is like writing in sand, here today and gone tomorrow." A general rule of thumb is that the harder something feels, the more it is that you're actually learning. And if learning ever feels easy, you're probably falling into the familiarity trap. Misconception number 3 is that during a study or practice session, you should go really hard, practice until you nail whatever it is that you're trying to learn. If anybody has told you that practice makes perfect, it's not wrong, but it's also not quite right. If you just practice something over and over again, like trying to practice a baseball swing or doing a math question or a similar type of math question over and over again, that doesn't actually work very well. It's actually much better to space out your practice sessions. Take breaks in between. Allow yourself to get a little bit rusty on what you've learned before reviewing it again. And even better, try to learn the same material in different ways. Instead of just staring at a math problem and trying to solve it in a specific way, try breaking it down in different ways, approaching it from different methods. There's actually a strategy that is extremely effective but wildly unpopular because it falls into these 3 different misconceptions. Very counterintuitive, and I'll tell you about it in just a little bit, but first let's actually go back to that quiz. You now have the information to figure out which of these study strategies are good versus bad. Highlighting is very bad because you're just reading something and it's super easy and you're just falling into the familiarity trap. Rereading, also bad, same problem. Testing is very good, even if you don't actually know most of the information, because it's forcing you to recall and retrieve different types of information from your brain. Spacing out your testing, even better. Teaching other people is really good as well. It's very difficult to take that information, repackage it, and explain it to somebody else, which is an indication that it's a good strategy. Cramming before an exam, you might do well on the test, but you're probably going to forget everything after that. Bad. Repeated practice, bad. Much better to space out your study sessions. Taking notes. So this is a hot take, but I believe that it is actually not a great strategy because not that it can't be a good strategy, but most people, when they take notes, they're kind of just like regurgitating whatever it is that they're learning, and you just end up falling into the familiarity trap as well. But if you're able to synthesize what it is that you're learning and take notes in your own words, that will be much better. I actually have a video over here where I talk more about note-taking and my system for note-taking. Taking breaks, good. And coming up with your own solutions to things, really hard, therefore good. Let me know in the comments if you're surprised by this. I would be surprised if nobody is surprised by this, because surveys show that highlighting, rereading, and taking notes are some of the most popular ways that people learn things, despite them not being very helpful. Let me now tell you the extremely effective but wildly unpopular learning technique. It is called interleaving. This is the practice of alternating between two or more different subjects or skills to learn. Let me explain and prove it to you using science. So there was a research study that was done in which there were two groups of college students who are all being taught how to find the volumes of 4 geometric solids, which are wedges, spheroids, spherical cones, and a half cone. It's not really important. You don't really need to know what those actually are. But basically, two different college students were all trying to learn the same thing. But one group was given practice questions that were clustered. Like there would be 4 questions on computing the volume of a wedge, and then there was 4 questions on computing the volume of a spheroid, and then 4 on spherical cone, and then finally 4 on the half cone. Now the other students had the exact same set of questions, but instead of having them clustered by question type, the sequence of these questions was mixed up or interleaved. So when a student is doing the questions, they might get one spheroid question, followed by a wedge question, and then a cone question, and maybe another spheroid question. Hope that makes sense. During the practice sessions, the first group of students that were given the questions in clustered averaged 89% of questions correct, compared only 60% for the second group that had the interleaved questions. But when the final test day came around a week later, students that practiced solving the clustered questions only averaged 20% correct, while the students that solved the interleaved questions averaged 63% correct. That is a 215 boosted performance from the interleaved group. I just need to repeat this again. Just by taking the questions and mixing them up to give to students, they actually scored worse when they were practicing, but at the very end, they scored 215% better than the students that did the questions sequentially. Remember the misconception that we're poor judges of when we're learning well? Yeah. That clearly shows here. Even during practice, it seemed like the interleaved students were doing worse. And it was also a lot more annoying and harder for those students. No wonder this technique is extremely unpopular. Unpopular, but so effective. And now you know, next time you're learning something, use interleaving. Even if it feels like it's not working out, just trust the process. Some other ways that you can use interleaving is if you're studying multiple different subjects, instead of studying, say, like AI for 4 hours today and then math for 4 hours tomorrow, do like 2 hours of AI today and 2 hours of math, and then tomorrow do another 2 hours of AI and 2 hours of math. This way you're mixing up the different subjects. You can also interleave by using different ways of studying the same material. Say if you're trying to learn Cantonese like I am because I recently moved to Hong Kong. While I'm studying Cantonese, I could do 1 hour of speaking practice and 1 hour of listening practice and maybe 1 hour of writing practice. Okay, so in addition to interleaving, I also want to share some of the other useful learning techniques from this book. The first one relates to remembering things, and to do that, you want to make things more memorable, more visual. Mnemonics are a great strategy, and I use them a lot. For example, for this prompt engineering video that I did over here, a mnemonic to remember the framework for how to prompt better is tiny crabs ride enormous iguanas. It's like a very visual image that I can remember, and it stands for task, context, resources, evaluate, and iterate, which is way easier to remember. Anyways, the book also mentions a technique called generation, which is actively trying to force your brain to come up with something instead of just looking at the solution first. For example, if you're learning how to code, you should actually try to write your own code first and test it out before looking at a solution. Or if you're learning a new vocabulary word, try to guess what it is that you think it means before checking the definition. Another technique is called reflection. This is the process of thinking about what you just learned, analyzing how it connects to the previous knowledge that you have, and considering how it is that you can now apply this new piece of information. For example, after a study session, you can ask yourself the questions: what did I learn? How does this relate to what I already know? And what strategies work the best for me? Next up is elaboration, which is just a fancy way of saying explaining things in your own words. For example, if you're learning about a historical event, imagine teaching it to somebody else and adding modern connections actions to what it is that you're learning. If you can actually do that out loud, it's even more helpful. I remember when I was practicing for my interviews, I literally just like talked to myself in the middle of a library for hours. I probably look like an insane person, but I passed the interviews. And finally, there is testing. We've already talked about this a couple of times, but I really want to elaborate on this point because testing is just such an effective way of learning things. It turns out that testing is one of the most effective ways possible to learn material. There is a lot of research that has been done on the subject, but I'm going to share with you one of the first ones that showed how powerful this technique is. The researchers were experimenting on students, as per usual, in which the students were told a story that named 60 concrete objects. Again, it doesn't really matter that much, but basically they were supposed to remember some stuff. There was a group of students that were tested immediately after being told the story, and they were able to recall 53% of the objects. Then they were tested a week later, and they were able to recall 39% of the objects. A second group of students, which was the control group, was not tested immediately after exposure and just tested one time at the end of a week, and they were able to recall only 28%. So it seemed like just by having that single test that literally took a couple of minutes, they were able to boost performance by 11% after 1 week. But the researchers did not stop there. They were interested in seeing what happens if you test multiple times. So there was a third group of students that were tested 3 times in total after the initial exposure, who were able to finally remember 53% of the objects. So what it seems like is that if you're testing students multiple times, they were immunized to forgetting. So they started off by recalling 53%, and a week later, they were still able to recall 53%. It seems like having multiple testing sessions help people remember things, and especially if the testing sessions were spread out throughout the week. Now, this study was replicated many different times with many different tasks, but the results were pretty consistent. Even in IRL settings, this worked out. There was experiments that were done on college students in which some college students were given just one midterm and one final exam. Some of them were given multiple different tests throughout. They found that consistently, students that were given multiple tests did better than if it was just one midterm and one final. And what's really interesting to me is that priming technique, where you're literally testing someone before they even learn something, even that is able to increase your ability of retention up to 40% just by testing on things that you didn't even know yet. Super counterintuitive, isn't it? But speaking of testing, I'm going to now give you a little quiz of all the things that I just covered. Please pause the video and put in the comments your answers to these questions. Okay, let's now talk about different learning styles. I find this to be really interesting. So I'm sure many of you guys have heard of the 3 different learning styles. Like there's visual learners, people who learn best by looking at things. There's auditory learners, or people who learn the best by listening to things. And there's kinesthetic learners who learn the best by doing things. Makes sense, doesn't it? But except that the research doesn't actually back this up. What? Like sure, people have different learning preferences. Like for me, my favorite learning preference is listen to things in an auditory way most of the time. But there's no research that shows that I would actually learn worse if I try to learn it from like a visual perspective, for example. However, it doesn't mean that the way that you're presenting information doesn't actually matter. It does matter. But it's not about the individual. It's more about matching what you're trying to learn with the correct learning style. Let me explain. Say, for example, if you're trying to identify bird species. If you're just trying to learn a different bird species by reading text describing the different birds, you're probably gonna have a pretty bad time. So in this case, having a visual learning style where you're showing people different pictures of birds is going to be a much better approach. If you're learning to play an instrument, it doesn't really matter what your preferred learning style is. Having a kinesthetic approach where you're actually practicing things yourself is going to have the best results. Same thing like you're trying to learn a practical skill like how to use AI, just you actually doing it is going to be much better. And final example, say you're trying to learn a foreign language. A mixture of listening, speaking, reading, and writing is going to be the most beneficial for you, regardless if you're more of a kinesthetic, visual, or audio learner. So next time when you're trying to learn something, don't think so much about your preferred learning style, but think more in terms of what is the best way for you to learn that specific thing. All right, final section I want to talk about is how to increase your learning abilities. People tend to think that our ability to learn is just kind of like what it is, right? There's like some kids in school that were just better at learning things and got better grades than other people. And they think that, oh, it's like, this is just kind of like what it is. While there is a grain of truth to this, some people are in fact better at learning things than other people. Most of us though, never actually get even close to what our potential for learning is. Like if you're a competitive memory champion and you want to be like the best memory champion ever and you're memorizing like 1,000 different things, like yeah, maybe your genetics and your like inherent intelligence will come into play. But for the majority of us who are not, trying to push those boundaries, we're just kind of like stuck in our mindsets and not really learning to learn so that we can actually improve ourselves. And that is really just the final message to end on. Like learning how to learn is like such an important skill to have. And it's also very important to treat it with a growth mindset, which means the belief that you can improve your intelligence and your learning abilities. And hopefully with the techniques that I talked about in this video, you're able to take that and become a better learner. Maybe by learning some of the topics that I cover on this channel, such as this AI course. All right, now before I end this video, as promised, here is the final quiz. If you can answer these questions, then congratulations, you have improved your learning abilities. I will see you in the next video or live stream. If you're watching this video, you're probably interested in self-learning. So if you're interested in self-learning STEM subjects specifically, I highly recommend that you check out Brilliant. Brilliant is a STEM self-learning platform that specializes in interactive hands-on learning. I first learned about Brilliant myself when I was interviewing for Meta, and they were actually the ones that told me and recommended me to check out Brilliant to brush up on my math and stats prior to the interview. And that's because Brilliant is just so effective at learning STEM subjects with interactive problem-based learning. If you're interested in generative AI, they have a short and sweet course that is a super fun overview of the subject and doesn't even involve any coding. They also have timeless course offerings like math and stats and programming with Python, as well as new course offerings to explore topics like neural networks and quantum computing. You can join the millions of people already learning on Brilliant by going to this link over here to get started for free, or just scan the QR code on screen, also linked in description. If you go through my link, you'll get 20% off their annual membership. Thank you so much, Brilliant, for sponsoring this portion of the video.